Welcome to Backyard Cigars, and I'm so glad that you could join me today. I'm smoking today what has been billed as a very rare and exclusive cigar. It's sold exclusively through Luxury Cigar Club. I checked a few days ago. Apparently, they still have stock, and they're still selling it for a large sum. And I'm not going to get into the price just yet, but we will discuss it at some point. First, we're going to see how well this smokes and how it performs. This is none other than the J. London Gold Series Wedding Exclusive, aka the Blueprints. So this cigar arrives in a white coffin with gold lettering that, if I show you, it's in reverse, but what it says is Jonathan and Erika Fiant, January 22nd, 2022. That is when they were married. I actually have smoked this cigar before, believe it or not. Don't. It's a long story, but I never reviewed it. I had another, and I thought, why not let me do this? Basically, you just lift open, and this kind of has a little. It pops the cigar open. It's in a cellophane, and they say 400 of these cigars were made for the wedding. That's what I read back in. Well, the first time that I had the cigar was sometime in late 2022, and I had two of them. So I've essentially had it for nearly a year now. And you're probably going to be seeing this review on the anniversary of their wedding. I think it was only, right that I release it on the anniversary of their wedding. And we're going to talk a little bit about Jonathan Fiant and his career, as well as the specs for this cigar. So let's talk about the specs. The specs are an Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper, an Ecuadorian Connecticut binder, and Dominican filler. Now, they state that the wrapper and the binder are both aged, but they don't state how many years it's been aged. They don't say that the Dominican tobacco has been aged, but they do say that the binder is of wrapper quality. So it's I would say it's expensive to do this, but I mean, I don't know exactly how many cigars they really made. They say they made 400 of these. But I imagine if he had, let's just say if he had 100 guests or so at his wedding, 100 cigars went there, I would think he'd want to keep some for himself. And then Luxury Cigar Club somehow, because they actually attended the wedding, got a hold of some cigars. Don't know how many cigars they've gotten, but maybe they're just not selling well. Maybe Luxury Cigar Club hasn't been able to unload the small shipment that they were able to acquire from Jonathan. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe me and two or three other people were the only ones that bought this cigar. Closer look at the cigar. Okay. And it's 6.5 by 52. They're calling it a double perfecto. So you can see that it's a nice looking perfecto vitola. And I've already clipped off the top. I'll clip a little bit of the nipple foot, but today I'm just gonna let it burn. I mean, it was a pretty expensive cigar, so let's smoke everything we can from this cigar. I'll be back to kind of let you know how it's progressed. So who is Jonathan Fiant? Who is he? He is, of course, the owner of J. London Cigars, and the name coming from his exploits in London, across the globe. When he began in 2007, he was basically a vintage cigar hunter. This is one guy I'd really like to sit down and talk to, because he procured vintage cigars from all years. I mean, in interviews, they've asked him about the most interesting, most favorite cigars that he's been able to procure, and he's talked about getting cigars from 1901 when Teddy Roosevelt took office, getting cigars from the 1920s, and specifically 1929, and getting a box of those, getting to enjoy them, not just procuring them all the time and selling them, but also enjoying them for himself and sharing them with his friends. And so he owned shops, and he ran this business, and he traveled the world looking for all kinds of vintage cigars. So we've established that he is very much into vintage cigars. He loves how they surprise him. He loves the complexity. He loves everything about them, and of course the history. And so, obviously, I can appreciate that. So I'm a little biased here, but in addition to that, so in 7 years later, in 2014, he teamed up with the Ventura family from the Dominican Republic, and he debuted with the J. London Gold Series. And the idea behind the J. London Gold Series, which this cigar, officially is under still, is to create a cigar using obviously new tobaccos that are aged, but not super aged, and to create and or to recreate the experience that one has with a vintage cigar. So that was his goal with the cigars. He wanted them to be accessible. He wanted them to be cigars that you could smoke at any time of the day. He definitely wanted the cigar to have some of those flavor profiles and some of the characteristics that a vintage cigar would have, which can be the creaminess, which can be the really the deep smoothness, the refinement that you do find from vintage cigars that have been aged well, or they just have aged well because they have. Because we just don't know how things work out sometimes when you're holding a cigar for 50 to 100 years, or for that matter, even 20. So, or for that matter, even 10. Yeah, sure, we can go there too. Yes, so that's been his goal, and he's been very much involved in the blends. I don't know how many blends he has, but I remember there was a time when he only had one blend, right? And he's got to start somewhere. I don't know if this is a new blend apart from the other cigars he has in his J. London Gold Series. I don't know. And it probably wouldn't even matter. This cigar was created to celebrate a moment in his life. Jonathan and Erika Fiant. And the guests were given these cigars. I don't know if it was one per guest, or if a guest really liked it, he could take home another. I don't know. Again, 400 were created. They're still out there. They're still available. You know, I didn't want to cut the nipple foot, and I really regretted it afterwards because it took so long for it to just form and settle down. And again, I've smoked this cigar before, so there are things that I do remember and that I can kind of recollect and review upon. You know, they got married in 2022, in January of 2022, and little did they know that about 8 months later, Tabacalera Ventura would burn to the ground. It would burn from 3 a.m. to 10 a.m. And it was tragic. They lost nearly 1 million cigars. Now, Tabacalera Ventura, they make Caldwell, they make ADV cigars, they make Room 101, and of course they have J. London stashed there. Then they had inventories across the globe, so they were able to source from that to stay afloat. But it was definitely a blow to the inventory. I mean, the aging room went up in smoke. I mean, that's big time there. You've got cigars that have been, tobacco that has been aging. You've got all kinds of different ideas that you have earmarked, and you look around and that's what you see. You see a body of your work, and here it is. Everything goes. Nothing was salvageable. And so that was pretty sad to hear about. But here we are. We are smoking a cigar that means something to Jonathan, I would think, because if you're gonna go and use wrapper grade tobacco for your binder, then you want to make your cigar a little extra special. Smoking. How has it been smoking? Just like the first time. The construction is top notch. The burn is good. It holds the ash very well. Burn line's been very well behaved. The flavors you get, the cedar, the cream, the spice, the subtle peppers, the graham cracker, some of the residual sweetness. The goal of J. London Gold Series is to recreate that vintage feel. And to some degree, he's achieved that. I mean, if anyone knows vintage cigars, I would say he knows vintage cigars a lot better than I do. And so I wouldn't question him on that, nor would I say that his palate is off in any way. when it comes to this cigar and how the experience is. It's a similar feel, but let's be real here. There's nothing like a vintage cigar other than a vintage cigar. Same way there's nothing like a Cuban cigar other than a Cuban cigar. You can find a Nicaraguan cigar in Nicaragua that can kind of be similar, right? And give you memories of a Cuban cigar, and even maybe fool you a little bit into thinking that it's definitely Cuban. But it is what it is at the end of the day. And this isn't a vintage cigar, but it sure has that vibe, right? It has that vintage cigar vibe, which is close enough for me. That refinement is there. The way the pepper is delivered in those small, subtle doses, and especially with the spices in the finish, and the way that there is this cream and sweetness, that would probably be one of the major differences in that, in a vintage cigar, you're going to get a lot more mustiness, and you're not getting that here. So, and that's a good thing. I mean, you're trying to recreate the experience, but you don't want to provide any of the off-putting flavors that you may experience during a vintage cigar experience. Whether it's pleasurable or not, you're still crafting a cigar that you have to understand people are going to be smoking on a day-to-day. The regular J. London Gold Series obviously isn't as expensive as this cigar, but in the case of this cigar, being for his wedding and all, and following along the line, I'm going to say that it more than likely follows that same blend that the regular lines go by, other than with the possible exception of the wrapper leaf as binder. We'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, there's just a really nice finish to the cigar. It's smooth. It's got a medium body. It's medium strength, but it's full-bodied flavor, or full flavored. It really does let you know that all the flavors are playing very well. It's very well balanced. I like that. Before we start talking about, you know what? Let's talk about the binder. He used the wrapper leaf for a binder. Now, a lot of us know that, when you're looking for binder leaf in your cigar, there are specific things that you're looking at. Now, at the heart of it, all tobacco can be basically used for either wrapper, binder, or fill. But when you start the sorting and the grading of the tobacco, that's when you start to look at the imperfections and look at the quality and the primings, and where on the plant you got the tobacco from, and you start to designate what is going to be used for what. I mean, that's just a professional way. But if you are looking at a wrapper leaf that perhaps doesn't meet the grade of the wrapper leaf that you want on your cigars, then you can designate it for a binder. And sometimes there'll be imperfections, and as Robert Davis on YouTube pointed out, but a technique that's often used, because you're taking this wrapper leaf, and generally binder leaf is a little stronger. You got to have that support, and you fold that wrapper leaf to give it more strength so that you can use it as a binder. And whether or not, in this case of this particular cigar, the wrapper leaf came from a higher priming or a lower priming, I doubt it came from a lower priming. I'm thinking it was a higher priming. Then it's not going to be as strong as some of the tobacco that has been designated and chosen for binder leaf. So you've got to improvise, and you've got to do something. One of the tricks that they do is that they fold it over. Chime in, anybody that actually rolls and blends and has experience with this. But basically, this is how it's done. And you may have imperfections in that particular leaf, or you may not. In the case of this, his intentions, I'm thinking beforehand, were to make it extra special and use a wrapper grade for the binder. What does that do to flavor? Well, see, I think that's how it plays in, right? Because it smooths out. Usually your binder leaf is not going to have that flavor that you want for your wrapper or your filler, for that matter. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't serve its purpose, and that it doesn't play its role in the blend, right? It does. But when you're using wrapper leaf for your binder, now the cigar experience gets a little smoother. and more expensive, of course, but a lot smoother. You're starting at this given point where the first two layers of your cigar are really smooth, and then you throw in that really good filler, roll it really well, obviously, using aged wrapper and binder, or in this case, both aged wrappers for the first two components of the cigar, and then some very decently aged Dominican tobacco, which is what I'm getting from this Dominican tobacco, that it's decently aged. And then I'm assuming this is how he's getting to that point where he is crafting a cigar that is going to mimic the vintage cigar experience, which is, again, what I'm sort of experiencing with this cigar so far. It's such a pleasure to smoke this cigar. It really is. But the one thing that we have to look at is the price. And I know, Luxury Cigar Club will spin their tails and tell you about how it's super rare and there are only 400 made and the price is $60. Yeah, $60. But this idiot here decided to splurge, got it on a deal. I still got it on a deal, right? A small deduction, 20% off or whatever. And decided to buy two. But, in hindsight, I did it more because I found that it was, first, I find J. London very interesting, and I thought it would make for a great cigar review. I could have easily purchased one of the regular J. London Gold Series cigars and done the same video. I don't know if they also use wrapper grade tobacco for their binder, but when I saw that in this one, I think that's what caught my eye, and that's what really made me want to get it and explore that topic with you and just talk about that with you for a moment, and how that type of creativity or that type of method of making a cigar can impact the overall flavor and the experience. But honestly, if you were to ask me, Jose, what would you really price this cigar for? I mean, I'd be brutally honest and tell you that at best, this is a $25 cigar. Maybe 30, maybe. You could put a good spin on it for 40, and now we're stretching it. But, okay, wrapper grade, binder, and aged tobaccos, and special event, and so forth. So maybe 40. But I think 60 is really pushing it, and I think it's really probably why it's not selling that much on Luxury Cigar Club, because if they're still selling it now, that means it just hasn't been selling well, and it's just been appealing to the idiot geeks like me and perhaps some of the J. London fanboys who, I don't want to say that, you're going to be gullible to believe that whether this cigar or any from his J. London Gold Series are going to be like a vintage cigar, but that might believe this is the closest that they're going to get to in smoking a vintage cigar. The good news is you can go to the vintage cigar store and you can buy a real vintage cigar and still get a good guarantee if you don't like the cigar or if you had an issue with it, and you can remedy that very quickly and still taste an actual authentic piece of history. But this is something else. This is, just having fun with it, and obviously in this case, celebrating a moment and crafting something special for that special moment. I would think that, you're very in love with your spouse, and you want to celebrate that. And if you're a cigar maker, you're probably going to craft something. 9 out of 10 times, it's just not going to make it to the market. Let's be real here. If Jorge Padron, who I believe is already married, but let's say he got married and he crafted some special Padron cigars for his wedding, I really doubt that any of them would make it to market. But in this case, it's a slightly different situation with J. London, because of their connection with Luxury Cigar Club. And the reason they nicknamed this cigar the Blue Prince is because Jonathan Fiant was wearing a blue suit on that particular day, and one of the members of the staff of Luxury Cigar Club said he looked like a Blue Prince. Therefore, aka the Blueprints. There you go. That's the name. Not not necessarily any other reason for it. It's a beautiful day today. It's about 68, 69 degrees. The humidity level is at about 35%, so very low humidity. I feel like the cigar is burning a little faster because of that, of course. But it's still holding its own. The first experience, the cigar burned a lot slowly, a lot more slowly, and but that's the only difference really in how the climate, the weather is affecting my experience right now. But in terms of flavors and the overall experience, nothing has changed, and I love that. And I really do feel that the original cigar that I smoked it a few months after, several months after I purchased it, and this one, having held it for about a year, I don't notice any major differences from it. I've not yet smoked any regular cigar or any line by Jonathan, so I can't actually compare them to this cigar. I know, major fail. I should have. That way I could have talked about it at least. But that doesn't mean that I can't do a review in the future on one of the regular line J. London Gold Series cigars. I certainly can. And when I do so, I guess I will, and then share with you uh, whatever I learned from having smoked both of them and whether or not they are that similar to a vintage cigar. I mean, this cigar right now, I was at his wedding and I was having this, and I'm sitting back with some champagne and, hors d'oeuvres, and, or after, I've had the meal. I give him a pat on the back because it's an excellent cigar. It's above average. It's superior in quality. It's offering all those things that I think that would appeal to a broad spectrum of cigar smokers. So, and I think that's another important part of a wedding cigar or an anniversary cigar is that you don't want to just make it, especially even if it's not going to market, because we don't know if Jonathan actually thought if there's some leftover, Luxury Cigar Club can take them and sell them. I don't know if that was a plan going into it or if it just sort of happened organically. But despite how it went down, you're making a cigar for a wedding where maybe well, you're a cigar smoker, so there'll probably be a lot of cigar smokers there. You're not just a cigar smoker, you're within the industry, so you're going to have some industry people there, and you're going to smoke some cigars. You don't want to put out something average. You don't want to dial it in. Just, you want to make something that's really good, because number one, you have a specific palate, and number two, you have a creative team that is going to assist you with this. And so it's not going to be like if for example, a friend of mine were to get married and he goes to a cigar maker and he says, hey, can you help make me a cigar for my wedding? I mean, most of the time you're probably not going to get the most impressive cigar. It might be decent, right? But it may not be the most impressive cigar, and you probably wouldn't want it to go to market and represent represent you in any way. But that aside, this is fine stuff. You're at a wedding or any place, and then there's the whole thing of there are and Jonathan Fiant has said this. He has said there are cigars that enhance a special moment, a special occasion, and there are cigars that are creating the special moment. And so there's that difference of a really good cigar that's enhancing an experience that you're already enjoying, that you would probably enjoy fully even without the cigar. But then there are these cigars that kind of create that moment and create conversations and special, unique little bonding moments, and do more than just enhance. It revolves around them and the shared experience of said cigars. And so that goes one step further in the cigar experience. And Here you have a cigar that Jonathan, I'm sure, did not take lightly and really approached it super seriously. Uh, does it impress me that he used wrapper grade tobacco for the binder? I'd be lying if I said I wasn't impressed by that. Did he do it just to impress me? Or us? Or in general? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Because he could, and because it was a special enough moment for the cigar. It's just this soft wood with cream and a very refined pepper and some spice in the finish, and the gram sweetness is still there, and there's just a wonderful melody of flavors going on here. And I'm not saying you should try and get this cigar and pay what they want you to pay. I'm not saying that. Maybe if you have deep pockets, sure, go ahead, get a kick out of it. But uh, for most of us, I think that this is just something that we hear about. The tradition of crafting a cigar or having a cigar available for a wedding or bar mitzvah or whatever, or something special, and you enjoy it and savor it. Some people keep a few, some people don't keep them right. Some, you know, but then you get people that just never really smoke, and then they get to try something. And if it's something like this, and they're at a wedding and they're not really a smoker, I think they can still enjoy it, because I think it's that type of cigar that can be appreciated by all and across the board. I think there might be a few people that would say that by the second half, the strength is a bit much. A bit much, you say? Well, perhaps smoke it a little slower. Control with that. Don't retrohale. These are things you can do to just adjust to the cigar if you're beginning in your journey, and you're getting in touch with new strengths and new flavors and experiences. So, if you don't like something, you don't like it. That's fine. But if you don't give yourself the opportunity to like something, then that's a different situation now. You are denying yourself because you want to close yourself off to the potential that lies ahead. I mean, really, that's what it boils down to. I don't want to smoke that cigar. It's just too strong. I just know it is. Why? Because the wrapper is dark? That doesn't mean it's gonna be a strong cigar, or super spicy for that matter, or super sweet. Just experience it. That's it, I mean, if I was at 25 at the conservative price for the cigar, I'm now reluctant to say this, but probably saying, okay, 40, yeah, 40, sure. Like it or not, this is a high quality cigar, and I'll be back to sum it all up. I like the band, and both bands on the cigar. I think it's very elegant. I think this cigar has been creamy. It has offered soft wood, touches of cedar, touches of spices, subtle notes of pepper, refined pepper, white pepper, some sweetness with a little salty finish to it. It has really been overall a very creamy cigar with some graham cracker notes along the way. Medium in strength, but almost medium full by the second half. Then you've got an overall full, to me, I think it's full body, medium to full body, and a really flavorful cigar, basically a full flavored cigar. And it doesn't start off that way, and one would say this too. I could see that one day these cigars, not specifically this $60 cigar, wedding exclusive, but his regular line of J London Gold Series, being themselves one day true vintage cigars that would be appreciated. Now I know that with the use of the Dominican tobacco in the filler. We don't know how that's going to age 10, 20 years. But in Jonathan and his company is situated in the Dominican Republic. In the Dominican Republic, you have types of tobacco that can age very well, that rival Cuban tobacco in the way they age. So one could say that, if someone were to buy a box of these or the series and age them for 10, 20, 30 years, they could be tomorrow's future vintage cigar and still offer a lot. One would like to think that. I think I have very big hopes for Jonathan Fiant. I really do believe that he's going to be, Fiant will be a giant. Okay, in this industry. I really do believe that he's doing a lot of great things and putting out some really quality stuff. I know you're going to tell me, but Jose, you've only smoked that cigar, so you don't really know that much about, taste of his other cigars. You really can't say, and he hasn't done that. His body of work isn't all there yet. No, it's not. But I really feel that just from everything that I've read about him and seen in his interviews and his passion, and I know I've always said this, a lot of people have the same passion, but he's practically living in the Dominican Republic, and his heart and soul are in it, and I just see something, I don't know, I see something special. Maybe it's just how I'm tasting this cigar. Maybe it's my bias towards the fact that he is a big vintage cigar lover like myself. Are vintage cigars for beginners? Is that something that beginners can appreciate? That's another question, right? Look, yeah, maybe they're not necessarily for beginners, like guys that have only, or men and women that have only smoked a few cigars in their lifetimes. But maybe, yeah, they can be for a beginner that has, tried a variety of different things and is gradually moving up. You're not quite there yet, but you know what things taste like, and you know a little bit about tobaccos, and you've tried several different types of tobaccos and cigars. So it could be, and even if you're not ready, we never know when we're ready until we're ready. And so maybe you just show up, or you get the opportunity to try a vintage cigar and you end up loving it, and you end up really understanding what makes it special or what could make it not special, and then understand all of that and process that and just enjoy the smoking experience, really. It's just still smoking so beautifully. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna keep smoking this. I'm gonna let it go to the nub, and I will include any notes if any changes in the flavor profile or anything that I pick up on that's distinct. But this has been a great experience. Till next time, I'm Backyard Cigars.